the, is that me? Sorry. Yeah, I'd like to call to order the zoning hearing board meeting for Monday, November 15th, 2021. I invite you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, and thank you also for your patience. This meeting has been called to handle the overflow of cases that we had originally for the regularly scheduled October meeting, so we appreciate the patience that the applicants have shown by waiting until now to come before the group. With that, I will move to start consideration of Appeal 3109. The applicant, Michael McAdam and Heather Ann Murphy, property located at 105 Summerhill Lane and zoned ACDM, Agricultural Conservation Density Modification. The applicants request a variance from Section 280-112D to allow grading, pool house, and decking in steep slopes, and a special exception from Section 280-112N2 to allow sanitary sewer lateral and stormwater management facilities in the steep slope. Is the applicant ready to proceed? You can take it off.
Good evening. My name is Ed Hughes. I'm an attorney from Plymouth Meeting, Pennsylvania, and I represent the applicants. I have two witnesses this evening. Should we have them sworn in now?
Sure. Or if you want to just give us a brief background, if you feel anything is necessary in addition to the notice. If not,
sure.
Bring the witnesses up. And
so as you indicated, we're seeking some relief with regard to the steep slope ordinance in the township in order to construct a pool house, spa, sun shelf, and related improvements in the property, including stormwater management. We've been through all the preliminary grading engineering with the Township Engineer, who has advised that the only issue remaining is obtaining relief from the zoning hearing board, which we're here for this evening. So the two witnesses would be Michael McAdam and George Maloof. Part of the application was the exhibit package, so I'll go through real quick. Exhibit A1 is the deed for the property showing ownership by the applicant. A2 is the assessor's property record confirming the ownership of the property and its dimensions. A3 is the grading pool permit plan, which was submitted as part of the grading permit application. A4 is the existing slope plan. A5 is a plan showing the shape of patio paver area before and after the proposed improvements are installed. A6 is a grading permit plan for Lot 5, which is the subject property, from 1999. A7 is the landscape architect's computer-generated renderings of the proposed improvements. A8 is the aerial photograph from Google mapping of the neighborhood. A9 are photographs of the three adjoining properties on the cul-de-sac, which I believe contains, 5 or 6 units, lots. A10 are photographs of the existing condition of the rear of the property and the photograph of the frontage of the property. A11 is the CV of our professional engineer, George Maloof. I have a petition that was circulated by my client throughout the neighborhood, which was not part of the package. I have handouts now if you would like to see them.
Why don't we get to that when we get to that portion of the questioning of your witness on that?
Okay, so the existing property is sloped at the rear. There appear to be man-made slopes since the original approval of the subdivision plan. There's nowhere else to put the improvements that we propose except in a small area of the steep slope area. We're digging into the hill. So below where we're doing our improvements, we're not changing the slopes at all. They remain as is. The property abuts at the rear to open space, and I think it's the Little Darby Creek, is the water course that runs through that area. So my first witness would be the the applicant, Michael McAdam.
Hello.
No?
Michael McAdam. Joseph McAdam.
And Mr. Hughes, oh, okay, you got it.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for hearing us.
State your name again, please.
Yep, Mike McAdam from 105 Summer Hill.
And you and your wife are the applicants this evening.
Yes, that's correct. My wife just had a kid 4 days ago, so that's why she's not here. My wife just had our second child 4 days ago, so that's why she's not with us. Thank you. Thank you.
And you reside at 105 Summer Hill Lane.
I do.
And Exhibit A1 is the deed to your property.
It is?
And A2 are the assessor's property records for your property.
Correct.
And who resides on the property now?
Me, my wife, Heather Murphy, my son, Michael Christopher McAdam, and my now daughter, Anna Lynn McAdam.
And you purchased the property back in 2013?
Correct. Yep, May 2013.
And have you done any grading or improvements to the property since you purchased it?
Nope, not on the outside. I did some remodeling inside, but nothing else.
So the slopes and everything were there when you purchased the
Correct,
property?
yes.
And by reference to Exhibit A8, the Google aerial, and A9 photographs of adjoining properties, your property is located on a cul-de-sac with 5 other dwellings?
5 other dwellings, correct.
And the neighborhood is zoned AC-DM, Agricultural Conservation Density Modification?
Yes,
And your property and other properties on the cul-de-sac abut an open space?
it's open space. Yeah, there's a stream pretty far down behind my yard.
And A9 are photographs of your neighbors' properties?
Yes, those are my neighbors to the right and left of my house, both of whom signed the petition in support of the project also.
And you're lot number 5 on the recorded subdivision plan?
Yes.
And your lot contains 35,250 square feet?
Yes, sir.
And Exhibit A10 are photographs of the existing condition of your property?
Yes.
The first photograph is the frontage of your property at 105 Summer Hill Lane.
Yes.
And the second is a shot from the rear of your property up towards the back.
Yes.
And the back of your property is already improved by decking and paving areas, fencing and walls,
Right.
and a small pool at the low end.
Yeah, there's a very small pool also.
And the third picture is another picture of the rear of your property.
Yep.
And you see a white clean-out valve in that picture,
I see it, yes.
and below that is a black clean-out valve.
Yes.
So as you understand it, the pool will go a little bit beyond the white clean-out area,
You're right by where that white valve is. if you
and
guys-
the seepage bed that we're installing to control our stormwater will be in the area of the black clean-out.
Yes,
And below that, you're not disturbing any slopes at all.
correct.
And a large portion of your backyard, because of the existing slopes, is not usable.
It's not usable for my son and daughter. It's just a little too steep currently. Yes.
And it's really just in lawn right now.
It's just a lawn.
No trees or shrubbery or anything.
No trees or shrubbery would be disturbed by any of this. I'm sorry, shrubbery, some of the shrubbery we would remove, but no trees.
And Exhibit A7 is the architect's computer-generated renderings of your property, of your
Yes.
proposal.
That's right.
And the first one appears to be like an aerial view of what you propose.
Yes.
And you propose to have a pool, a spa, and a sun shelf,
Yes.
a fire pit,
Fire pit and an outdoor kind of pool hut.
and the existing pool is located behind where you propose, where you propose to put the outside seating area and your house.
Yes. Which one are they looking at? This one? I see. If I put my hand here? No? Okay. Oh, this is it? Oh. Okay. It's currently right there. There's a little, called Pebble Tech. I don't know if it's like 2.5 feet deep. It's hot, cold. It's like just kind of comes up to your mid-hip.
It's not really usable as an entertainment focus for your property.
I don't think so.
And it's sort of dangerous down below where your
It's out of
kids-
sight, so we feel more comfortable if it was in sight of the kitchen and everything. Because it is down a level.
And the next photograph is another view of your proposal, looking from the rear to the back of your house.
Yes,
And that shows the open-air pool house,
yes,
spa, pool, and sun shelf, and your fire pit.
that's right.
And then your existing paving area that's going to be sort of reconfigured, but in the same general area.
Yes,
And the next one would be another view looking across your property towards the pool house.
yes,
And the final one is a picture looking from the pool house across towards the fire pit,
yes,
and shows your paving area and sitting area.
correct.
And you retained an architect, contractor, surveyor, and engineer with regard to your proposal.
I did?
And as you indicated, there's no other place on the property to install these improvements without encroaching into the slope area.
Correct.
And you believe that the improvements will make your rear yard more usable and safe.
I do.
And your proposals are basically not visible from Summerhill Lane.
Correct, yeah, they're not. I don't think you see them.
And you did circulate a petition.
I did. I know all 5 of my neighbors on my street on Summerhill signed it, one of whom's here also.
And this is a copy of the petition signed by the resident at 101 Summerhill Lane,
Yep,
104 Summerhill Lane,
yes,
108 Summerhill Lane,
yes,
and 109 Summerhill Lane.
yes.
And your neighbor, Mr. Gerber, is here,
Yeah, I have his signed petition in here too.
and he lives at 100 Summerhill Lane.
Yes.
So I pass this out, or? I do. Thank you. I don't have a copy of Mr. Gerber's, I just got that this evening. And do you believe that your proposal will not have an adverse impact on the neighborhood?
Correct, I think it'll.
And do you believe it'll be an improvement to your neighborhood?
I do, yes.
And your neighbors will be invited to come over and enjoy the
They will,
facilities?
yes.
And
I would remind you, you're on the record.
I'm in a record.
And you have not received anybody who indicated they're objecting to your proposal?
No, I haven't gotten any objections whatsoever. I also had to go through homeowners' approval for design, I guess, to make sure that they liked it. And they approved also. No objections there either. Homeowners Association, that's what I was trying to say, yeah, HOA.
Thank you.
Any questions from members of the board?
I do have a question. If I can find my references here. When I was looking, maybe your engineer will be answering this question, but when I was looking over the ordinance, which I know I put here, there it is. You are asking for a variance, and I also think, did you ask for a special exception
Yes.
under?
under N, that'd be 280.112 slope controls, paragraph N. The zoning hearing board may authorize as a special exception the following uses upon submission of an erosion and sediment plan. Number 2, sanitary and storm sewers with the approval of the Township Engineer and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. Now, maybe, I'm not sure which step comes first. It sounds like that comes first. There hasn't been any testimony on this particular point, so I'm not sure if we should wait for that to happen. That is approval by the Township Engineer and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, or that's a question, I guess, for our council, as well as whether or not that plan it's been achieved already and hasn't been presented to us, but it doesn't form part of the record as we're sitting here.
Has application been made to DEP?
Yeah, the first step was the preparation of a grading permit plan, which included soil and erosion control. That went through a series of reviews by the township engineer till we got to the point where he said the only remaining issue is obtaining relief from the zoning board. So basically, he has approved the plan, provided we get relief.
Do you have that approval for us?
I have
To enter it into the record?
I have an
Mr. Lords?
email chain to that effect, yes.
Okay. But that, as Mr. Lord points out, that's not the only requirement of this section.
Well, I'm pretty sure that because of the scope of the project, DEP does not get involved in this.
Well, let's just hold on. Why don't you, this gentleman is your engineer. Why don't you have him come on up and get sworn in?
Okay. I mean, do you have any more questions of?
Yeah, I have another question. Yeah, so, I think it's Exhibit 10, the pictures of your backyard, just to get a sense of this. I can see the tree line there. I think it's the last picture in 10. How far back does, my question is, how far further back does your property go into those woods?
My understanding is about 10 yards.
About 10 yards?
Yeah.
Okay, and is that, if I'm thinking about where this is, I know down by that creek, there's a trail, a hiking trail.
Yes.
And I seem to recall a very steep drop-off. Is that the case behind your house?
You're saying, are you asking about, is my hill steep or is
Yeah, after you get into the 10 feet of the woods, is there
Oh, no,
very
it's not as steep as my backyard. No, the hill in my yard is steeper than, it is a
Okay.
downgrade, but it's not at all like
Okay,
my
it's not like a
backyard.
cliff going down, yeah.
No, it's much
That's
steeper
probably
in my
further
yard.
up somewhere, okay,
I think so.
yeah.
It's actually pretty flat, but I mean, I haven't ever walked the trail, but I have been back in those woods there, and
Okay.
it's easy to go. It's much easier to walk on the bottom, like the back of my property to
I
the
see.
stream than it is up this hill.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
A question. Did your HOA have to approve this?
They did. And they
Because-
approved it.
We don't have anything in the record for that.
Just as testimony.
That's half the
I have an
battle.
email. I have an email from the board member. I submitted it. I had to ask, I had to show these plans, I got 6 months ago to my neighbors.
Yeah.
They made me make sure they didn't have objections then, when we didn't know it was going to be this much of a process to try to get it going.
I mean,
I do have an email if you want me to forward it to somebody. I can find
Well,
it.
if the board were to grant the relief requested, you would still have to satisfy that requirement regardless of what we did here. So,
Yes.
you know, just having the relief is one step, but if they've already gone through that process, and the testimony is to the effect that they've gone through that process, I don't think that our moving forward on the questions is subject to being presented to the HOA. They need to satisfy that independent of what they're
Yeah.
doing here.
Thank you.
Okay, let's, any other, I'm sorry, questions?
Yeah, that's
Rich?
okay. Yeah, this may not be for you, it may be for the engineer, but I'm just wondering whether there was any discussions about making the pool, I don't know how to say it. We don't know what the width of the pool is in relation to, you know, how it sits to the house. But was there any consideration to moving it a little bit closer to the house?
There was.
Or shortening it in that sense?
There was lots of consideration. We spent tons of time trying to figure out what to do. And we actually did move this up a lot through the engineering process. We went back and forth with them for months to get to where we are today. So it was actually originally, I don't know, maybe 10 feet further out, 15 feet.
Right.
We pulled it in. It's getting a little close to the house, and I just don't know.
That's do you know what the dimension is from the rear of the house to where those lounge chairs are shown on the proposal?
This was drawn to scale, and it is on here of a 10-to-1 scale. What they would, I guess what the architect would do, or the guy who designed it, was he'd pull out a ruler, and I honestly don't
That's
know how to
okay,
do that
yeah.
same thing he did. It's not, I'd be shocked if it was, I don't know what it is. It feels close. Is that what it is? 25 feet? he
We
says?
have those dimensions through the engineer.
Okay, yeah, I'll save my question then for the engineer. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. McAdam? Okay, thank you.
Is that
Mr.
it for me?
Hughes?
Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate you hearing me out. Am I handing this to him now, or do I stay up here? I'm back. Okay. Let me get out of the way. Here you go, sir.
Mike told me he didn't even, what's the zoning? What's the zoning hearing? He asked me. He never heard of it before. People do that? Some people do it. Some people do it for too long.
Thank you.
And state your full name and spell it.
George Malouf, George, George, Malouf.
And what's your address, George?
1117 Carolina Avenue, Westchester, PA.
And what is your occupation?
I am a professional civil engineer.
And in the exhibit package, A11 is your CV,
Yes,
and you're registered as a professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
yes,
You've testified in hearings like this before,
yes,
and you've never been disqualified as an expert in civil engineering.
no,
I'd offer the witness as a qualified professional engineer.
Without exception.
And you were retained by the applicant with regard to his proposal.
yes.
And could you describe his proposal by reference to Exhibit A3 and A7?
Shall I show you? Well, basically, we're adding a pool, a spa, a sun shelf, an open-air pool, and a deck.
Open-air pool house.
Yes,
And some of those improvements are in the steep slope area.
yes, they are.
And as I understand the ordinance, the steep slope that's being regulated are slopes greater than 20%,
Yes,
but you do have to show slopes between 14 and 20%.
yes, they divide the slopes into two pieces, between 14 and 20%, and greater than 20%.
And your Exhibit A4 shows that?
Yes,
And the slopes between 14 and 20% are the light dashed area, and the slopes above 20% are the darker areas.
yes,
So most of the slopes at the rear of the property are in the 20% and above category. And do the slopes appear to be man-made in your opinion?
yes. The original plan before the subdivision and even the permit plan in 1999 did not show any steep slopes. It was supposed to be around 10%, and for some reason, the contractor probably pushed everything to the back, creating a level area and a steep slope area. So that's what happened.
And Exhibit A6 is the grading permit plan prepared by Marmany and King, Marmany and Associates,
Yes,
and that shows an area of slopes greater than 22%, just a small area on the property.
yes, small. Yeah, this is the one I mentioned. It should have been built at a slope around 10%.
And the lot is 35,250 square feet,
Yes,
and there are 2,464.9 square feet of slopes between 14 and 20%,
yes,
and 8,250 square feet of slopes 20% or greater.
Yes.
And we're going to encroach into the 14 to 20% area by 369 square feet,
Yes.
and into the 20% or greater slopes by 1,377 square feet.
Yes.
And are any of the proposed improvements closer than 20 feet from the rear and side of the property lines, or
No.
closer than 10 feet from the principal building?
No.
And the proposed outer edge of the pool, the edge at the far end of the property, is 24 feet from the existing pavers,
Yes.
and the seepage bed is 29 feet from the existing pavers.
Yes.
And the outer edge of the pool is about 5 feet beyond the wood cleanout.
Yes. Which, can I look for the picture?
Next one, next tab.
This is the white clean out. This is the white and this is the black clean out. This is the existing papers that we're gonna be about 25 feet from the edge of it, from the edge of the papers.
Are the cleanouts shown on any of the plans?
Yes. Now, they're pretty hard to see on the small size, 11 by 17, but I have a larger plan.
Which of the exhibits are the cleanouts shown on? Is that A6?
10.
Oh, A10.
The photos are on in exhibit.
No, no,
10.
I want them on the plan, on a
Oh,
plan.
okay. Plan,
A3.
yes. Okay, on top.
Can you point to the clean?
Those are the existing two clean out. This is the white one and this is the black one. This is the existing sanitary system and this is the existing lateral right now. We are proposing to go around the proposed pool all the way around to hook up to the existing lateral. The one that
Can
you
you
see.
point again to, where's the pool on that larger scale?
This is the pool.
Okay, where's the clean out?
This is the existing clean out over here.
It's about in between 2/3 and, about 2/3 and 1/3, right in that area. Maybe can you circle that?
Yeah. Make sure it's clean.
And can you circle the black clean out? Can you see that?
Thank you.
And our proposal is to sort of cut into the bank and install the improvements. We're not building the slope out and dropping off, we're going back into it. So below our seepage bed, we're not disturbing any slopes. Is that correct?
Yes. The limit of the service is going to be this dark silt fence line.
And right now, the distance from the edge of the existing paver, which is like a circle that pops out a little bit, to the rear of the property is 90 feet.
Yes.
And the distance from the outer edge of the pool to the rear of the property line will be 66.5 feet.
Yes, true.
And the distance from the seepage bed to the rear of the property will be 60.5 feet.
Yes.
And sanitary and storm sewers are permitted in the steep slope area by special exception.
Yes.
And the existing sanitary sewer lateral is located in steep slopes,
Yes.
and we're proposing to relocate that,
Yes.
but still be in a steep slope area.
Yeah.
And we also propose to install some seepage beds and stormwater management facilities in the steep slopes,
Yes.
and they're also permitted by special exception.
Yes.
Will the location of those facilities in the steep slope area have an adverse impact on the surrounding
No.
properties?
No.
Will has the township engineer reviewed your grading plan?
Yes.
And that included an erosion and sedimentation control?
Yes. Yes.
And we have a series of emails from him with regard to his relatively lengthy review of this application.
Yes.
And it was only at the end of, towards the end of the application process did the steep slope issue come to the consultant's attention. So that's sort of why we got as far as we did in the process.
Are you going to enter the communication with the township engineer into the record?
Yes, I am.
Or are you just testifying as to it?
There you go.
Here's the email.
I think you're up to A13, maybe?
So I would direct the board's attention to the bottom of the first page. He's writing to our surveyor. We have reviewed the grading application, permit application for 105 Summer Hill Lane. We cannot approve the grading permit at this time due to the following issues. Plan comments. We note that zoning relief was requested from section 280-112 slope control section of the ordinance. If relief is granted, please update the plans with a note indicating the ordinance section, a summary of the zoning relief, and the date of approval. So that's the only comment remaining in his review of the grading permit plan.
But it has not been approved yet.
No, it has not.
Okay, thank you.
And it won't be if we don't get a relief tonight. Will the proposed improvements in grading, if installed as designed, create erosion and sedimentation problems?
No,
Will it will not affect watershed or create an increase in stormwater runoff?
no,
We are controlling our stormwater runoff per the grading permit review.
yes,
And it will not create an increase in the possibility of landslides or soil subsidence.
no, we're not.
And it will not create an increase in sediment and pollution in streams.
No,
All those issues have been reviewed and engineered properly. Will the encroachment in the steep slope area for the construction of the proposed improvements have an adverse impact on the neighbor's neighborhood or the adjacent open space?
no,
Is there anywhere else on site where these improvements could be installed without encroaching into the steep slope area?
no.
Thank you.
Questions for this witness from the board?
I just had a question. When you drain the pool, does it go into the seepage trenches, or where does the water go?
Yes, it's going. We have series
And that's
of,
compatible for all that water? I mean,
Yes, it is. It has been designed to infiltrate the increase in the stormwater runoff.
How about emptying the pool, though?
Yes, we have series of drains around the pool. It will direct all the additional flow to the pit. So you see them over here, 1, 2. They're draining to this pit over here, and eventually to the bigger pit over here.
okay. All right, thank you.
Do you know how many gallons, I'm sorry, how many gallons is the proposed pool?
I do not know.
Okay. How about the depth of the pool? What's the deepest section of the pool?
Less than 9, I think it's like 8.5 feet.
You're still under oath.
Thank you for the reminder. I believe it's definitely less than 9 feet. It's either 8.5 or 9 feet. I remember going back and forth to the contractor, who I can text and get the answer for also, if you're willing.
So that kind of goes back to the question I was asking earlier. So I've seen the pool appears to be 20 by 38. I guess why not 18 by 38? In other words, how do we limit? I'm looking at A4, the existing slopes plan. The dimensions aren't there, but you go into that 20% slope, and I'm trying to understand what was done to try and limit that. Where the pool butts into that slope. How do we lessen that impact?
And as background, remember that one of the things that this board is responsible for doing is granting the minimal relief required in order for you to permit you to use your property as the owner. So that's ultimately where Mr. Weitzman's question is going.
Okay.
What do you think about an 18-foot wide pool rather than 24?
24 sounds better. It was wider at first, and to make sure I'm on the same page with, if somebody could, I want to make sure I'm on the same page.
In other words, I guess my concern is that the bulk of this pool's in the 20% slope.
With meaning that from here, this.
I'm looking at A4.
You're looking at A4, okay.
This area of the
So
pool.
just away from that.
Away
Okay,
from
just
it.
away from the house.
Right.
Yeah, we were originally planning a bigger pool, and there was easements, and we just kept on working with the engineer, and everything was shrinking, which I totally understand, and we spent a lot of time with the engineer, and I'm trying to get as big a nice pool in the backyard as I can, given whatever you guys will give me. So I didn't know that would, if we pulled it back a couple feet or 6 feet, but it would be a little skinny. I was hoping to have a big area to sit with my kids and like throw them around in the pool and stuff. I think it'll look more scenic. It'll be worth more if that means anything to you guys. I don't know. It also has like the pavilion or the pool house thing is going to be the same width as the pool, just for scenic purposes. And I couldn't do as much in there, and I'd like to really have a nice sitting area for my family to sit out in the backyard and have shade also. So like that would shrink a lot too. So I just think it, we really did consider a million different designs and spend a lot of time on it for what it matters to try to come up with what we think would work. And going back and forth with the engineers, they just thought if we got in front of you guys, it might go our way and get going.
I have one other question. I think I'm on A7. Yeah, the renderings.
Okay.
I believe it's the second one in. I'll hold it up so you can see which one I'm pulling up. Do we know what the height of the retaining wall is that supports the pool?
Offhand, I do not. That's why I'm looking
I
at
don't
it.
know if
Just,
that- yeah.
About 4 feet, 4 to 5 feet,
4 to 5.
the max. Of the total.
Okay.
So just if it matters, to answer your question, in my mind, 4 or 5 feet in a hill, I thought, and I get to use more of the hill. Part of me is trying to use more of that space in the backyard because I can't really use it now. It's just like, it's pretty steep. My son, I can't play with him out there. It gives a bigger play area.
Okay.
That's the
Thank you.
rationale. Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I have a question for the engineer. Turning to the original grading permit from 1999 and the question about the slopes, I just want to verify something on the record. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of the plan, under key map, under legend, it's got two little things down there. One shows existing contours, which is a dotted line, and then proposed grading, a proposed contour, which is a solid line. Now, when I look at this, and I just want to put this on the record because I think it does show that the slopes were altered in the original construction as a result of the original grading plan. But if between topo lines 326 and all the way up to 365.5, it looks like there was grading done in those areas. Is that correct?
365?
Yeah, see topo line 326? Maybe
Yeah.
my eyes are better than yours. I can't believe that would be the case, but,
There is no 365.
yeah, you're looking at the grading permit?
Yeah,
All right.
from Marmany.
All right, so if you see topsoil stockpile in a circle, then you move to the left, you'll see rock filter,
Yeah,
Okay, and right underneath that little black line, there's 320, the number 326, that's the
Yes.
topo line, right?
Yes,
That's a solid line, correct?
Yes.
That shows that was going to be graded, right?
yes,
Okay, then above that is 328, 330, 332, 334, all solid lines. So there's grading in all of those areas, right?
yes,
Okay, and that was permitted by the zone, the grading permit and anticipated by the grading permit in 1999, is that right?
yes,
All done as part of the construction of the house.
yes.
Okay, so let's turn to this sewer lateral. Once that lateral is moved, is it going to feed by gravity, or do you have to install a pump?
No, it's going to be fed by gravity.
Now, we're still back at the position where the area, the thing that I read, subparagraph 2 about the approval of the Township Engineer and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. Now, you stood up and said, well, you don't need that. However, our zoning ordinance, and we just can't ignore the zoning ordinance, does say you need it.
Well, the DEP get involved only if you are disturbing more than 1 acre. And in this case, we're not disturbing 1 acre. We're disturbing, even the entire property is less than 1 acre.
Well, I don't know what we can, this is for council, I suppose, but this, you know, if it's in the ordinance, we have to follow the ordinance. Now, if there's a memo of law that can be submitted to us, we don't have anything in the packet, then maybe that would help us, but we don't have that. We're sitting here looking at what the zoning ordinance says. We have to be guided by the zoning ordinance.
Okay?
And also the township engineer, the approval, I see the email, but I don't see that's actually an approval. It's just, that's the way I read it. Maybe somebody else will read it differently.
Mr. Lord, you could make that a condition of approval.
Pardon me?
You can make that a condition of approval if you'd like, that if the board
Well, those two
decide.
items, we don't actually have, does the email from Mr. Hughes, there's an email string, the one that's at the top of the page, of the first page is September 23rd, 2021 at 2:42 PM.
Norma, this is A13, by the way.
Is that A13?
Yes.
Okay. A13, it doesn't, I skimmed through it. It did not look like an approval, and there's only a passing message or passing reference to the relocation of the sewer lateral. So I'm not trying to be over technical. I'm just trying to make sure that got all the T's crossed and I's dotted.
Well, this is how it developed in the review process after we filed our application. This is what the engineer did. He didn't issue a formal opinion. He just said, all you need to do is get zoning relief, and then I read it, we're good to go.
Well, it says the approval of the township engineer. That would be different than the approval of the zoning hearing board. It's a precondition to the approval of the zoning hearing board, as is the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. With all due respect to your observations,
But what I'm saying is the township engineer approved the grading except for what relief you have to give. That's how I read this.
well, it's not the grading, it's the sanitary and storm sewers.
You're asking for special exception relief?
Yeah, I'm
from
asking for a
280.
variance to have a pool in the steep slope. That's not permitted. And then I'm asking for a special exception for the sanitary sewer lateral and the stormwater.
And that's what we're talking about right now, and that's what Mr. Lord's questions are going to.
Well, this review was for the grading permit, not just related to the special exception.
That may be the case, but the point that Mr. Lord is making, I think, remains germane, which is to grant special exception relief under 280-112N2. There are a number of steps that have to be completed. Approval here, approval by the township engineer, and either approval by DEP or some indication from DEP that they're not going to look at this, there's nothing for them to look at. But right now, those other two pieces are not, as I believe Mr. Lord and perhaps others might observe, are not in the record.
You don't think this email chain and the last comment we got from him
Mr. Hughes,
is approval?
I just indicated what
Okay.
I thought of it, but
Okay.
we'll have discussion and you can hear it again.
And we would accept that condition, that we would get a formal letter from him and something from DEP, whether we either approval from them or them saying they don't look at these anymore. I mean, I think the ordinance was back in like 77 or 78. DEP's modified its provisions many times. And you don't even go to DEP anymore, you go to the Conservation District.
And somehow all of that did not make it into the Radnor Township zoning code, and I'm sorry about that.
Well, no, I
But
mean, you know,
we take the code as it's in
it's a
front of us.
complicated world anymore, so.
There's a lot of things not in that code.
A lot of things in there, too.
Any other questions here? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Hughes?
No. Move for the admission of the exhibits. I'll provide the township engineer with, or the township solicitor with Mr. Gerber's petition signed for 100 Summerhill Lane, because that wasn't in the package I handed out.
Without objection, we'll admit exhibits A1 through B. Are there any comments from members of the public on this application? Norma, if you would swear the gentleman in?
Yes. Yes. Michael, Michael, Franklin, Franklin, Gerber, Gerber.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Where do you live?
I live at 100 Summerhill Lane across the street from the McAdams.
And you signed a petition in support of the application?
Yes, sir.
And you reviewed the plan and his proposal?
Yes, sir.
And what is your position with regard to his request?
We think it would be a great addition to the neighborhood.
Think it would have any adverse impact on you or the neighbors?
We do not.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Gerber? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from members of the public? Okay, seeing none, I will move that the board grant the application for a variance from section 280-112D to allow the construction as reflected on the plans and in the testimony presented here this evening, and that the board grant a special exception under section 280-112N2 to allow the moving of the sanitary sewer lateral. The approval of the board being conditioned on the satisfaction of the requirement of approval of the plan, the erosion and sedimentation plan referenced in section 280-112, N2, and satisfaction either by approval or by an indication from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection that it does not review applications of the sort that are referenced in the subject section, period. If anyone makes me repeat that, I'm leaving.
I just wanted to make one comment. You said the special exception for the sanitary sewer lateral and the stormwater management facilities.
I'm sorry. Yes, and
The
yes,
seepage bed.
the application, the relief request in the application. Thank you. Is there a second? Is there any board discussion? Seeing none, I will call the vote. Mr. Weitzman?
Aye.
Mr. George Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Lord?
Aye.
Mr. John Nagel?
Aye.
And I'm also in favor, so it's 5-0. You had it at 3. We're good. Good luck with the project. Thank you for
Thank you very
appearing
much.
this evening. Okay, moving on. We have now appeal number 3111, the applicant, James and Christine Flynn, property located at 236 North Aberdeen Avenue and zoned R5 residential. The applicants request de minimis variance, or in the alternative, variances from section 280-112D and any other relief deemed necessary to allow improvement of and disturbance to certain steep slopes. This is our favorite section of the zoning code. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
The applicant is partially here, but Nick Cornelia, our counsel, is about 5 minutes behind. I don't know whether
Why don't
it
we
pleases the
continue?
board to
Why don't
take-
we continue until
Okay.
your counsel is ready to go? We will stand in recess. Yeah, that's the word. I'm good at this. Recess for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. John did go to the planning commission.
All right, we're back on the record. I've announced Appeal 3111, and council is here and ready to proceed.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening. Nick Cornelia, representing the applicant. I apologize to the board. That's the first time in 42 years I've ever had anything like that happen. So I was I was just assuming. I was assuming it was the third Thursday. I just assumed it. Sorry. Christie, you want to swear in Christie and Chris? Christie, what's your relationship to the property?
I am the owner.
And you're owner with your husband?
My husband and I are the owners.
Okay, and who do you live there with?
My husband and I live there with our 2 children who are 6 and 9.
And when did you purchase the property?
December of 2008.
And we have marked as an exhibit A2, a copy of the deed, is that correct?
Yes.
When was the house built?
The house was built in 1887 or 88, depending on which record you look at.
Okay, and to your knowledge, has there been any modifications to the home?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3, and this is an aerial photo of the site. And Christy, you probably do this computer thing better than me if you have it pulled up.
I don't know if I have the aerial on this here. That's the aerial.
Okay. So I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3. Is that an aerial of the site?
It is.
Kind of indicating where the property is located?
Yes.
And can you just describe the neighborhood and the type of homes in the neighborhood?
Yes. So this is the section of North Aberdeen Avenue that is just north of the railroad. It's a one-way section on our block. It's got multifamily, attached homes. Most of the homes are twin homes. There are some townhomes. There is a multifamily quadplex across the street from us here. And then we have the single-family home here with the double lot.
And the property, I guess immediately to your right, which would be to your east, is that also a twin? Or what type
That's
of
a twin.
And then the other homes down the street there appear to be twins as well,
There's
or multifamily?
more twins, a single, twins, townhomes as you head east.
Okay, and we're here tonight because you're going to be disturbing steep slope, is that correct?
That's correct.
And we have a couple pictures here indicating the area of the steep slope. And can you describe, this is A4, can you describe what A4 represents and also kind of describe the area of the steep slope we're talking about and how it appears as if it was constructed?
Yes, so it's the area that is in the rear of the home that we are talking about. This is the slope that comes, there's a flatter area that comes right off of the walkout basement, and then there's a steeper slope down to where the lid of the septic tank on the property is. And that's the area that we're talking about that is considered steep slopes. It's down that area. It's around this curve of the hump here that was created in association with creation of that flat section behind the home. And this, if you can see on the left-hand side of the page, there's a sidewalk that comes around from the front of the house. And it's raised up so that it's level with more like the front of the house, even though it's a walkout basement condition.
And as you go down your backyard, it appears as if it's gradually sloped?
It is. Yes, the lot slopes, it's high at the street and slopes down to the back.
And what is in the very rear of your property?
Not on our property, but adjacent to our property, there is a creek.
All right. I'm going to show you what has been marked as an exhibit, and this is the plot plan, and I'm not positive the exhibit number on this, if I can reference it. Do you have it there, John?
List here.
Do you have the exhibit list?
List.
I didn't see it. No.
I think the next one would be 5 if you want to use
Do you have,
A5. but-
do you have another, you have the file? A5? All right,
Let's
we'll
call
make
it
it A5. All right.
Let's call it A5.
Okay. So if you can, actually, you're in the business, correct?
I am,
You're kind of
yes.
In the business. You've been here,
I
What
am,
other
yes, correct. I work as a developer for Rockwell, though this is a personal project.
and you actually live here. You live here.
And I live in Radnor,
Right, okay.
of course.
Referencing A5, can you describe what your intent is to do with the property?
We are intending to subdivide the property. We will demolish the existing home and build a set of attached homes. So semi-detached, single-family homes, twin homes, 2 total homes at the end, so it's an addition of 1 home. They would be attached in the center there.
And the only regulated steep slope is that area that we indicated previously,
That's correct.
at least on the photos. And actually, is this the area here that's kind of overlaid on this plan?
On the plan, there is a hatched area. It is in the area of Lot 1, and it's white hatching in the brown building envelope, building footprint there.
Okay, and actually, Chris can testify as to the square footage and the percentage of the lot that is regulated steep slope. And that's the only steep slope on the entire property, correct?
That's the only slope that's greater than 20%, yes.
And actually, you came to the zoning hearing board previously.
I did.
On this property.
That's
And
right.
Could you tell the board what you requested at that time and the outcome of that?
Sure. In the summer of 2019, my husband and I appeared before the zoning hearing board. We sought a variance from your lot width requirements. It had been our hope when we acquired this property to get that variance to be able to maintain the existing home and to build a second single-family home. The lot width requirement in your ordinance in R5 is 55 feet wide. We had, we're just shy of 100 feet of total lot width here, so we were 11-ish feet short. We were not granted that variance, and so we are pursuing the by right use of the semi-detached use here, and that is why we would be demolishing the existing house for this new building.
And the only relief you're asking for here is the steep slope relief.
That's correct.
You comply with all other zoning requirements.
That's right.
And did this plan go for a review before the planning commission?
The Planning Commission has seen both the subdivision plan and this application for the zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board application specifically was before them earlier this month on the 1st, and they unanimously voted to recommend support of the variance.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
I'm sorry, before we start there.
I'm
any-
sorry.
Yeah, any questions
Christie?
from members of the board for Ms. Flynn?
And so, does the creek go right behind your property?
It does. It is about here.
And
At the very
Oh, I'm sorry.
back.
There's a dotted line back here.
You're referring to that double dotted line that goes under a 12-inch walnut tray or something that's down there?
It's the top of the bank.
That's what I'm looking at. Top of bank, okay. Is that more than 30, are you within the riparian setback?
We are not, no.
and then the neighbor behind you would be on the other side of the creek?
Correct.
Yeah. And what's been your experience with the flooding back there on your property?
I feel very fortunate relative to the neighbors on the other side of the creek. Those are the neighbors that live on Willow. They have certainly have a greater impact than I do. That was the former site of the natatorium, and it's quite wet there. This site is much higher. We do see the creek rise. We have a fence in the rear. On the rarest of occasions, the water would come up close to that fence. But really, the banks are very steep in that area. It is not at all a gradual bank down to the creek. It's a
Right.
very steep creek.
Okay.
I do have a question, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but on in the photos, which is Exhibit A4, in the photos, there appears in the backyard this concrete structure. Is that a former well, or what is that?
That's the septic tank.
It's not used, right?
It is used.
It is
This
used.
property has not been connected to public sewer.
Okay, so what, on the plan, there appears, there's a green line for a sanitary system that's
So our
anticipated?
proposal-
Excuse me, let me just get the question out.
I'm sorry.
What is your proposal then?
Oh, sorry. Our proposal is to connect both of these properties to public sewer.
Which is behind you or out here?
It is in North Aberdeen, so it would be coming from into the front.
Okay, thank you.
And there's no stormwater management currently on the
Currently,
property,
there's
right?
no stormwater management. And the house sits up towards the street, and then there's a pretty large driveway that runs down the hill. So there is a substantial bit of impervious existing without control.
Okay. Are you going to take out the septic tank?
Yes.
And the driveway, there's two driveways.
On the proposed plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, are they, those driveways, I'm calling them driveways, but they're the gray things. in the
Driveways,
front there.
yes.
Are they going to be impervious?
They would be counted as impervious, yes.
Okay. You're going to you're using some special asphalt, or you're going to use those impervious pavers?
No, they are not pervious, they are impervious.
Oh, impervious.
Correct.
Have you considered making them pervious?
I have not, because we're still well below the impervious coverage ratios that are permitted in the zoning. And with the new stormwater management, we are able to control the impervious surfaces that will be created. And we have, I'm going to get out ahead of my engineering non-degree here, but we do have infiltration in this location. Chris probably is better to answer those questions for you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I do. Christopher Yon, ChristopherYohn.
And Chris, what is your profession?
I'm a professional engineer.
Are you registered in the state of Pennsylvania?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been a professional engineer?
Since 2006, so 15 years.
Okay, and you've worked for various local firms since that period of time?
Yes.
And have you testified before various boards and commissions throughout the area, including this township?
Yes.
And have you been qualified as an expert in civil engineering?
Yes, I have.
Any questions on qualifications or?
Do we have a
requests that
CV?
He gave me a CV, and it's sitting in my office. I apologize. I can. Chris has one.
Talk us through your CV.
Chris has one.
I did testify in Radnor Township in the spring for a property on Lawrence Lane.
Without objection, we will
Thank you.
acknowledge as a witness, as an expert.
Chris, did you prepare the plan for this project?
Yes.
And what we're looking at, I believe, is A5. Is that the plan you prepared?
That's correct, a 3-page set.
And looking at A5, as Christie has mentioned, it shows the area that's regulated steep slope. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. The crosshatch area shown under the Lot 1 house.
And looking at the second page of A5, does that indicate, is that an existing conditions plan?
Yes, it is.
And again, is the crosshatched area the area of the regulated steep slope?
That's correct. It's the same area on both plans.
And how, in your professional opinion, how was this steep slope area on this lot formed?
So it appears to me it was created when the house was built, and so there's an area kind of in between the driveway that was sloped, and then an area behind likely taken from the excavation of the house that was put right behind it before they caught up to existing grade.
Now, if this plan, this existing conditions plan, was constructed today, would they be permitted steep slope? Would
Yeah.
you would be allowed to construct those steep slope?
Yes, we could prepare a grading permit plan that would show or slopes like that. They would be permitted, the plan would be approved, and if that were true, then they wouldn't be regulated as they are now.
Because you would have received a permit.
Correct.
And the only reason that they're regulated now was this house was constructed in 1898 when there was no permit requirements.
Correct.
Going through the steep slope ordinance, there's various provisions. But first, let's talk a little bit about stormwater management. Currently, is there any stormwater management on this site?
None that I'm aware of.
Does this site perk?
Yes.
What's the importance of a site perking?
Well, to quickly talk about stormwater, I tell homeowners that when it rains on a field, some of the water seeps into the ground and what doesn't runs off slowly. When it rains on a parking lot or any impervious coverage, none of it seeps into the ground and it runs off quickly. So the two main design components for stormwater are how much seeps into the ground, which you would call infiltration or volume control, and how quickly it runs off is what you would call rate control. And so to prove that you can infiltrate or do that volume control, you would do what's called an infiltration test, where essentially they dig a hole and pour water in it and see if it drains. Now they use a double ring infiltrometer or some other device to measure how quickly it drains and control other variables. But those tests were done at this site in 2 locations and both showed that it could infiltrate.
And is there an importance for a site infiltrating in Radnor Township being able to perk? In other words, if it did not perk, would you need a waiver from the stormwater ordinance?
That's correct.
But in this instance, you will not require any sort of waiver.
That's correct.
Now, going through the ordinance regarding steep slope, there's a number of intents on why steep slope is regulated. And the first one is to limit erosion and sedimentation. Will the removal of these steep slope add to any erosion or sedimentation?
No.
Why not?
So the way that I believe you would potentially have erosion on a steep slope is if you imagine a lawn area in your yard or any vegetated area, the steeper it is, the harder it is to keep the vegetation stabilized. And so the flatter it is, the easier. In this case, we're basically removing those slopes. They were kind of created next to the house. And so as part of the proposed development, we would not do the same thing. And so we would be eliminating what is right now potentially a sediment issue.
The second item here is to protect watersheds and limit increases in stormwater runoff. Would the removal of the steep slope cause harm to any of the watersheds or have an effect on stormwater runoff?
No.
The next item was to prevent an increase in the possibilities of the landslides. Would the removal of this steep slope have any effect on landslides at all?
No, similar to the answer of the first question, by getting rid of the steep slopes, you're kind of eliminating the likelihood of that.
And this area where the steep slopes is located, as indicated by the photos, is grass, correct? It's lawn
Yes,
area.
correct.
There's no plantings or vegetation outside the lawn area, is that right?
Correct.
And then the other item was to protect streams from increasing in sediment and pollution. Would the removal of these steep slopes have any effect on sediment and pollution for the streams?
No.
And matter of fact, you're infiltrating the stormwater, which in fact, and providing stormwater management, which is not being provided today. Is that right?
Right.
Now, did you do a calculation on the square footage of the regulated steep slope and how it relates to the total area of the lot?
Yes. So and I calculated it in 2 areas. There's one smaller area, which is in between the driveway, the walkway next to the house, and another walkway that connects the driveway, and that area is 60 square feet. The other area behind the house is 380 square feet, and so the 380 square feet is 2.4% of the lot area. The 60 square feet is 0.4% of the lot area, and together the 440 square feet is 2.7% of the lot area, and the 0.4 and 2.4 don't add up just because of round-off error.
So the steep slope area on this lot is 2.7%.
Correct.
Thank you. I have nothing further of this witness.
Any questions from the board? No, thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing further. Would request the exhibits be made part of the record, please.
Without objection. Nick, the application has been presented in the alternative, something either giving us the choice of either a full variance or a de minimis. Any discussion you might share in terms of supporting the de minimis argument, I'd be interested to hear.
Sure. As Chris just mentioned, the total area of the steep slope is only 2.4% of the total lot area. So it's a very small area that's being disturbed. And in fact, the area that's being disturbed is really an area that was created, what you would call man-made steep slope, that was created as a result of the construction of this house back in the 1890s. If, in fact, this house was constructed today, these slopes could be created there. They could be removed because there would have been issued a valid permit, and our ordinance states that if you have a valid permit, you can remove steep slopes. So for that reason, I believe not only do we have established grounds for a variance and a hardship, but we also have established grounds for a de minimis variance as well.
Sorry, thank you.
I should have asked this question before, but I'm looking at this. This is the steep slope area, correct?
The crosshatched
Yeah,
area.
and now it's going to be underneath the house,
I'll
after the
have
house is
Chris
built.
or you guys are better able to answer that one than me.
I mean, it just.
I think it's being flattened.
Yeah, it's just
John.
being
Yeah,
flattened.
yeah.
It's going to be
being
under the
flattened.
house.
It'll be
obviously.
underneath the house, yeah. That's correct.
All right, but thank you. I mean, that's why I think it's the minimum. Or the minimum amount.
Okay, if there are no other questions, to start discussion, I would move that the applicant be permitted, be granted, a variance from section 280-112D on the basis of a variance as opposed to the de minimis variance being requested, all in accordance with the plans and testimony presented this evening. Is there a second? Oh, I'm sorry, geez. I apologize. That's on me. That's on me. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak? I apologize. Norma will swear you in.
Yes, if you raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? And state your full name and spell it, please.
Diane Engelbert. Last name is Englebert. Thanks.
Diane, D-I-A.
Yes, D-I-A-N. Yes, thanks.
Good evening, and again, my apologies. Please speak into the microphone.
Okay. Hello. I am here tonight because I did want to see what was going on, and it has changed significantly since I saw the first plans. It looks now like there are two driveways, and that before that there was only one. So it looks like we're losing parking. North Aberdeen. I don't know if everybody knows North Aberdeen, but it is a very small street with packed houses, and I live on the south side of the street with 7 homeowners on the south side of the street. Most of it is occupied by us, the homeowners. Across the street on the north side are mostly renters, and there are some driveways there. Then there are people who have driveways who park one car in the driveway and park their other car on the street. So the reason I'm here is because there's a parking issue on the street. And there are row homes at the bottom of our street that usually are all parked in front of their houses there. They don't move a whole lot, so there's not much parking at the bottom of the street. And the people with driveways, when they don't have their second car parked in the driveway, they park on the street. So we often park at the top of the road, which is where Christie's house is, and I'm very concerned about losing curb up the street there. There's room right now for 5 cars to park at the top of the street. And I don't know what kind of changes can be made to reduce the loss of parking for those of us on our street, but I would like that to be taken into consideration, because losing however many spots could be lost by that is really significant to those of us who are homeowners on the side of the street that is all raised up and can have no parking space in front of our house. So mostly I would like to have you all be aware that this is a concern for people the homeowners on the south side of the street who have no place to park. All around the neighborhood, it's very hard to find places to park, including this one. So if that could be as minimized as it could be to not take away 5 parking places, then that would be appreciated. I also wonder about the construction vehicles that will be there. Where will they be parking? What kind of space will they be taking up? And in the winter, it's going to be worse for parking. So just wanted to put my concerns out there about the parking for the families with children on my side of the street. And there's also a handicapped person who has her own spot, so that takes away from our parking as well. And so that's what I wanted to mention here, is that parking is a concern on our street, and we are going to lose significant, possibly looks like we could lose a lot of parking up there. So I'd like to know how much parking will be left for us.
I certainly sympathize with Diane's concern. That's definitely one of the most important reasons that I came before you back in 2019, because with the separate home, I was able to provide a shared driveway, which would really have been no change to the existing condition. The twin homes both have driveways because of the configuration of how those homes work. Each of those driveways is 19.5 feet, which is the required parking spaces, widths for the 2 spaces in your ordinance. And so on-street parallel parking space is, I believe, 24 feet in your ordinance. So this would reduce parking by 1 spot as it is. I think the point that Diane is addressing is probably a planning commission item for the subdivision plan. We are requesting the only relief that we're requesting from the commissioners is a waiver from the saldo requirement that the driveways be 5 feet off of the property line, because splitting the driveways would cause a greater impact to the parking on the street, and so we're pursuing that relief to keep them together to reduce the impact on that on-street parking. So I certainly understand and sympathize, and we've done our best to minimize that impact, but that is unrelated to the steep slopes.
It is unrelated, but how many parking places will be up there?
Yeah, well, Christy, how many parking spaces are you providing? Are you providing garage spaces for each of these homes?
Well, for these homes, I have 2-car garages each, plus there's 2-car parking spaces for each in the drives.
Let's talk a little bit about the drive. Currently, do you have a driveway for your home?
I do, yes.
And so that would take up 1 parking spot, I guess, if you're doing on-street parking?
I actually have a whole exhibit for the Planning Commission to show them how the parking works. But there's a gap in the parking. So parking is permitted from about here on the street to the driveway, and then again between our driveway and our next door neighbor's driveway here. So there's typically 2 spaces here and 3 spaces here, and though they're not all long enough for by code, your depth of your code, it's a little short technically, but that's the practicality of being on the street. And it works because there's the back out space at the drive and in the front there.
Okay, so I think the question I want to get to is, how many on-street parking spaces
So-
are we losing by this? by
We
this
would lose
plan?
one from what is there now, is our calculation.
You would lose one.
Yes.
We're going to be able to park 4 cars up at that spot.
You know, I think this is something that really should be aired at the planning commission. Seriously. So, I mean, you should really go to the planning commission, because this is really a subdivision issue, and we're not, that's the planning commission.
So you can't preserve the curbs?
No. You'd have to talk to the planning commission on that.
When is the planning commission?
Speak in the mic, speak in the mic.
I don't know whether we'll be on December or January.
Yeah, okay. All right. That's it. I just want to make sure that there is parking for at least 4 cars up there. That's what I'd like to make sure of. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, to the extent the applicant is granted relief this evening and wishes to proceed, there will be a land development process that they will have to go through, and the public will have its opportunity to share thoughts about the plan in the course of that process as well. Okay. Is there any other member of the public who would like to speak on this application? Seeing none, I would move that the application for a variance from Section 280-112D to allow improvement of and disturbance to certain steep slopes as reflected in the plans and testimony presented here this evening be granted. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any board discussion? Seeing none?
Just,
Oh.
we're not going with the, we're not going with the de minimis, we're going with just
The motion
straight
is a
variance.
full-on variance.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, I don't think I care, but I think I think it's an easy call on the de minimis.
Okay, we'll call the vote on the motion to grant the variance. Mr. Weitzman? Aye. Mr. George Nagel?
Aye.
Mr. Lord?
Aye.
Mr. John Nagel?
Aye.
And I'm also in favor. That's 5-0. Good luck with the project, and thank you again for your patience. There being no other cases before us, we stand adjourned.
Thank you for your courtesy.
Thank you all. See you, Chris.